Sarah has been an owner and general manager of the heat pump store in Portland, Oregon since 2012. While working as a marketing manager promoting energy efficiency programs such as Energy Star for the Northwest electric utilities in the early 2000s, she was introduced to the HVAC industry. An unlikely match was made. After working for Lennox Industries for almost 10 years, she joined a fledgling company, the Heat Pump Store, in 2012 and realized she'd found her true calling: to lead a team that is helping to bring energy-efficient home comfort solutions to her community. Sarah passionately promotes Ductless for all. There we go. Thank you, Sarah. And just for everyone to know, this is a special thing because Sarah is uncommonly kind in sharing her actual dollars, like what everything costs within her company. I wanted her to come because you can learn a lot about how pricing happens at the installation level from Sarah.
You know, the basics of how we put together our pricing is it's simple. And again, for me, I have to keep things simple. That's how it works for me. So what are the materials, including the equipment, that go into the cost for the installation of a ductless heat pump? So obviously we need to know that. Then we need to look at how many labor hours does it take to install different HVAC systems. In the case of ductless heat pumps, the labor tends to be smaller, which is a good thing, because it means that we can install more equipment in less time. And then knowing the best practices in installation so that we're making sure we're actually installing things right the first time rather, so that we're not going back and people are happy with it. It's performing the way it's supposed to. And we're going on to our next customer. And then here's where we get into some of the specifics of the pricing. So at our company, we sell a large number of single zone 12,000 BTU systems. The Daikin Aurora 12 happens to be our favorite. Our pricing, we typically sell this system for $4,195 before any type of manufacturer, promotional discounts, or utility rebates. And I will say that our utility rebates, as our company has grown, we do less of our business based on the utility rebates. It's very interesting. Well, at the beginning, it totally drove what we do. At this point in our market, the market has matured enough to where people are wanting the technology irregardless of whether or not they get rebates on it, just because it's so good. In this scenario, quick overview of what the pricing. So the equipment, about $1,250. The materials, about $450. Our burdened labor, $600. That's both for our installer and our electrician. There's a commission of $420 or 10%. Permit costs $100. Financing cost $84. The person may or may not finance it, but we have to build that in to make sure we're covering the average of what we pay in financing costs a year. So we're looking at total costs of $2,904 approximately, with a gross margin of $1,291. It's interesting because at first blush for me, $1,291 seems like a lot of money. I am totally amazed at how much it costs to run a small business. That gets eaten up very quickly because, again, that's just the $2,904 is just covering the actual costs that go into the job itself, right? So it's not covering any of the overhead of my facilities, any of the overhead of my administration, my staff, my commercial liability insurance, my auto insurance, my vehicles, my fuel. The overhead costs are very real. And so that $1,291, I'd like to see that higher. But again, I want to make sure that I can I can keep myself in a position that I want to be, which is sort of in the middle price-wise in my market. These are the basic installation materials that we use when installing a ductless heat pump. And there's just a whole variety of things, but it's also relatively short as compared to a contractor that installs all types of HVAC equipment, which we do not. We only install inverter-driven heat pumps. This is a relatively small list of things. This is a list of things that can easily be on every van, every truck, and you can really get efficient with making sure you always have the right materials on your vehicles. You're not spending time, going to the distributors and getting stuff, etc. So this gets a little into the nitty-gritty, but just gives you an idea. One of the greatest financial benefits of installing ductless heat pumps over other types of HVAC equipment is the relatively low ratio of labor to equipment costs. And, it really means we can, for that single zone ductless heat pump, we can install 2 of those a day, assuming they're relatively close together. And so, that is the way that you can be profitable, is by really making sure that your crews are skilled and can do the installation in the right amount of time. So yeah, typically we add an additional 2 to 4 labor hours for each additional indoor unit that's installed. More installation means more profit per day. And managing labor is more difficult than managing the purchase of equipment and materials. My purchase of equipment and materials it's pretty static for these jobs, but the labor can really vary. And one of the things I definitely know after doing this, as long as I've been doing it, is having the right people on board is really critical to the success of the jobs. The work is, in the scheme of HVAC, the work we do is relatively simple, but you can absolutely screw it up. We also know from experience that following installation best practices on every installation is really key to the customer satisfaction and the ongoing success of the company. Again, that goes back to having the right people on board. There's just no substitute for doing it right. And that goes without saying, but I think, again, having the right people on board and charging enough to be able to compensate them well is really critical. And for me, it's really about our people and making sure we've got the right people. I've had lots of conversations with people in utility programs over the years that I've been doing this, wanting to figure out how to make the installations cheaper. How do we make them more affordable for homeowners? And I don't have the answer for that, because my goal is that as my installers grow with our company, that I can keep up to a certain point, increase their pay, increase the benefits that they can receive from us. And so I'm not sure how to get it cheaper and still have everything in place to do it right. So just quickly walking through how the sale typically works for us is, we're reviewing the existing heating and cooling system with the customer, and then considering things like how they live in the house, how they use their current systems, personal preferences and tolerances. For us in the Pacific Northwest, the question about AC, that's another difference from when we started in 2007 to now. It was really all about heating in 2007. That's really all we were concerned about. And that's really changed, with global warming and the temperatures. We're really seeing it's about AC as much as it is about heat frequently. But you really have to understand with ductless and with zonal heating in general and cooling is what are people willing to do? If they're not willing to keep doors to bedrooms open, then you cannot let people know that their system in the main living area is going to contribute to bedrooms, not if they're going to keep the doors open or closed. So there's all kinds of things that we really have to be making sure we understand what people are looking for, what they are willing to do, and how they're willing to live. Finally, for us, it's about customer education. We cannot install the equipment in the most excellent manner, but then leave with not giving information to people about how to use it, both from the standpoint of energy usage. They will not save. There's the potential for people to not save energy at all if they're not using it correctly, and just people's happiness with how it functions for them.